The second of California-originating ska punk band Sublime studio albums, Robbin the Hood, often fails to get the same level of critical recognition as their debut 40 Ounce to Freedom, as well as their apocalypse final release, Sublime. Arguably, though, one of frontman, singer, and guitarist Bradley Nowell's greatest songwriting accomplishments appears tucked away, in this second album, in an underappreciated little gem entitled Pool Shark. Initially appearing as an upbeat, punky 57-second drive-by shooting of a track, the same song appears again later in the album, as a more intimate acoustic version that still only lasts for about a minute and a half. Thematically, the track deals primarily with the subject of Nowell's heroin addiction. The lyrics describe Nowell lying naked in bed, reminiscing of the wrongs that life has done to him, and injecting himself with heroin. Some of the jargon used in the lyrics may be confusing to many first-time listeners. For example, the euphemism, tying on the dinosaur, which means to inject heroin. One defining and initially puzzling lyric of the song is the line, "My baby likes to shoot pool." According to the group's bassist Eric Wilson in a 2015 interview with Greg Prato of Songfacts. Really, he wrote that song about this girlfriend that he wrote most of his songs about. When we'd go on the road, he wasn't the most loyal boyfriend. He screwed around on the road and his girlfriend knew that. She was really good at pool. It turns out that she was hanging out with some guys and she got good at pool. They broke up shortly after that, but that's what he wrote that about. This comment by Wilson provides us a certain level of insight regarding the actual identity of the pool shark mentioned by the song's title. The term pool shark is defined by Urban Dictionary as one whose goal is to con money out of others by using a combination of deception, talent, and straight coercion, combined with the game of billiards to take advantage of susceptible players. Is it possible that the term pool shark refers not just to Nowell's girlfriend's newfound pool skills, but also her taking advantage of his vulnerability? Or is it a dual meaning, also referring to the heroine taking advantage of his vulnerability, with the thought of his girlfriend's potential infidelity compounding the problem of his addiction? Although we may never know for sure the exact meaning of all of the lyrics of Pool Shark, we can still learn much from the song by analyzing it from a theoretical perspective. There are several songwriting devices used throughout the composition that help Nowell to communicate his emotional state with us, many of which also contribute to the uniqueness of the track. The first thing that one might notice about the acoustic version of the song is its sparse instrumentation. The track features Bradley Nowell singing and playing acoustic guitar totally alone, instantly transporting us into an intimate, isolated setting. Our glimpse into this loneliness, however, is incredibly brief. Among the most notable features of the song is its short length. The acoustic version of the song features a fleeting 2-bar intro, 2 12-bar verses, 2 8-bar choruses, and a single chord outro, if we can even call it that, giving us a total length of a measly 43 bars. Despite its short length, however, the song delivers a devastating musical blow and is hardly lacking in compelling, original musical content. The most musically interesting feature of the track, I would argue, is the relentlessly surprising harmonic modulation of the chord progression throughout the entirety of the song. As a matter of fact, it is actually very difficult to say with absolute certainty, at multiple points throughout the song, just exactly where the tonal center is. As we shall see, this immensely creative continual harmonic movement is the key aspect of the work that makes it so successful, and is also responsible for just how emotionally impactful the song is. Prior to looking at this modulation, however, I think it's first important to take a cursory look at the actual form of the song. Pool Shark follows a simple structure of intro, verse 1, chorus 1, verse 2, chorus 2, and a single chord outro. As we shall see, however, verse 1 and verse 2 differ in their key centers, as do chorus 1 and chorus 2. The work begins with Nowell tonicizing D minor in the intro section by playing a progression of D minor, A minor, D minor, a 1-5-1 within the key. Although a progression of D minor, A major, D minor would much better suggest the key of D minor, due to the leading tone of C sharp in the A major chord, a note that would hypothetically be derived from the D harmonic minor scale with its raised 7th leading tone. I still think that an argument for the key of F major, the only other reasonable possibility here, is weak, especially considering the fact that an F major chord is never actually played, and that this intro section ends on a D minor, where it certainly sounds like the tonic. The first verse of the song features a 12-bar chord progression of 6 different chords, spread out over 2 bars each. These chords are D minor, A minor, B flat major, F major, G flat major, and D flat major. This first verse is really where our harmonic adventure begins, and it's important to note that following the debut of the D minor chord in the first two bars of this first verse, we never actually hear a D minor chord again for the remainder of the song. Although it would be easy enough to interpret the first four chords of this verse in D minor as a 1-5-6-3 progression, we immediately run into a problem with our G flat and D flat major chords. There's a strong argument to be made that this section either exists simultaneously in the key of F major as a 6-3-4-1 progression, or at some point it modulated from D minor to its relative major of F, using a sequence of common chords. Quite frankly, I think that following the first four chords, the progression could end with either a D minor or an F major, and that it would still be musically convincing. A simultaneous analysis in the key of F major also serves to help explain the G flat and D flat major chords. With our new tonal reference point of F major, our G flat chord can now be understood as a Neapolitan chord that actually tonicizes F major. A Neapolitan chord, for those of you who don't already know, is a major chord built on a lowered second scale degree, in this case in the key of F major, normally written as a 2 or sometimes just the letter N. Interestingly, our sixth and final chord of the first verse is a D flat, which could arguably function as a subsequent secondary dominant of the Neapolitan chord, which we could write as a 5 of flat 2 or just a 5 of N. A secondary dominant, for those of you who don't already know, is a major chord or dominant seventh chord, built on a scale degree a perfect fifth above a note other than the tonic. A secondary dominant temporarily tonicizes a chord or key center other than our tonic. An analysis of this first verse in the key of F major, then, allows us to analyze the D flat as a secondary dominant of our Neapolitan chord, rather than the much more tedious explanation of having it be a secondary dominant of a Neapolitan of a 3 chord in the key of D minor. Another alternative explanation of the D flat that also provides support for our F major hypothesis is that it is a borrowed chord from the key of F minor, the parallel minor of F major, built on the 6th scale degree. The secondary dominant and borrowed chord explanations of this D flat major, by themselves however, still don't entirely do justice to some of the theoretical underpinnings behind the chord progression. A final strong theoretical explanation of the progression is that Nowell is actually following a musical sequence throughout the verse sections. A musical sequence is a restatement of melodic or harmonic material at a different pitch than its original exposition. In this case, the musical material repeated at different pitches is the harmonic progression of the verse of Pool Shark. Starting with the D minor chord, we can see a harmonic sequence that follows the pattern of having the root of each chord ascend a perfect fifth and then a minor second. This occurs 2.5 times until this movement is broken by an ascent of an augmented second between the final D flat chord of verse 1 and the first E major chord of chorus 1. This transition between the final D flat chord of verse 1 and the first E major chord of chorus 1 is arguably one of the most shocking moments of the song. The best explanation for this transition is that Nowell is engaging in what's known as direct or unprepared modulation. This is a musical technique where material is shifted surprisingly from one key to another without any type of modulatory material or preparation whatsoever. In this case, the surprising change from the semi-distantly related chords of D flat and E serves to accentuate the power of the lyric, "Now I've got the needle," a sharp contrast to the previous lyric of "Tonight used to be so cool." It would still be a mistake to assume, however, that when we arrive at the first chorus, the first chord E is actually our new tonic. And although it may even sound like it is, for the first 6 bars of the first chorus, which rock back and forth between several E and B major chords, presumably a 1 and 5, our eventual move to an F sharp for the last 2 bars of this section forces us to question this assumption altogether. Just as a hypothetical, let's analyze this section in the key of E major as a 1-5-1-5 progression. In this case, our eventual F sharp chord would have to be analyzed either as a 5 of 5, a borrowed major 2 chord, or the result of another harmonic sequence, in this case of the ascending fifths pattern, a very common type of harmonic movement. By the time we actually reach the F sharp major chord, however, the progression sounds like it wants to resolve to a B major. And although this is not what actually happens, this would mean that the chord progression of the first course is actually a 4-1-4-1-5 in the key of B major. The implications of this tonal shift are not to be understated. If it is true that the first chorus of the song is in the key of B major, it would mean that it followed a first verse that ends in the key of F major, marking the first major structural appearance of a tritone in the song, an intervallic relationship that, as we shall soon see, carries massive musical and symbolic importance for the song as a whole. Following the final F sharp major of the first chorus, Nowell begins the second chorus with an F sharp minor chord. The second verse of the song follows the same harmonic movement of the first verse. It is now just transposed up a major third from the starting and ending keys of D minor and F major to F sharp minor and A major, respectively. Interestingly, though, while the first verse of the song breaks the potential third repetition of the harmonic sequence by transitioning to the first chorus through the harmonic movement of an augmented second, the transition from the last F major of verse 2 to the first G flat of chorus 1 fulfills the prophecy of a complete third repetition of the harmonic sequence, ascending by a minor second. The second chorus follows the same harmonic movement as the first chorus of the song. It is now just transposed up a diminished third from E to G flat. This gives us a chord progression of G flat, D flat, G flat, D flat, G flat, D flat, A flat on the second chorus. One final intervallic relationship that I think it's important to take note of for a proper understanding of the text setting of the song is between our starting D minor chord and the final chord of the second chorus, the penultimate chord of the song, an A flat major. One should take note that the intervallic relationship between the roots of the starting chord D minor and that of A flat is that of the tritone, Diabolos in Musica, itself. I think that it's no coincidence that this A flat, a tritone away from our starting chord of D minor, appears just as Nowell sings his final desperate realization that, someday, he's gonna lose the war.
One day I'm gonna lose the war.
Following the A flat, Nowell ends the song with a nice open E cowboy chord at the top of the guitar's neck. So is this E major chord our answer? Is Pool Shark a song in the key of E major? I think that the best summary for the harmonic trajectory of Pool Shark is that the song begins with its intro in the key of D minor. Verse 1 begins in D minor but transitions to F major through a series of common chords. Verse 1 then starts to adventure outwards from F major, using the G flat Neapolitan and D flat secondary dominant of the Neapolitan, only to then modulate to the most distant key of B major surprisingly, through the intervallic relationship of the chromatic mediant between the D flat and the 4 chord of the key of B major, E. The final F sharp major chord of the first chorus turns minor as the second verse begins. Our new temporary tonal home of F sharp minor quickly moves to A major, following the same harmonic pattern as the first verse, albeit now transposed up a major third. Our second verse transitions to the second and final chorus, fulfilling the third full repetition of the above-mentioned harmonic sequence, and bringing us to the starting chord of G flat for this new section. Similar to the first chorus, however, this starting chord of G flat actually functions as the 4 chord in our new key of D flat major. The final chord of our second chorus, A flat, moves to an outro chord of E major, and our song ends. In conclusion, for those of you who are still following, the intro of the song is in D minor, verse 1 ends in F major, chorus 1 is in B major, verse 2 ends in A major, chorus 2 is in D flat major, and the outro is in E. Effectively, all 6 sections of the song are in different keys, all in the course of less than 2 minutes. Wow. Bradley Nowell's legacy as a songwriter will no doubt live on through his work with Sublime. Although Pool Shark is one of the band's lesser-known songs, I think that it represents one of the best examples of Nowell's talent as a songwriter, not just because of its interesting modulation and advanced harmonic functions, but because of its brilliant text setting and communicative ability. In many cases, it can be hard to tell just how much of a work was produced by a musician thinking theoretically versus writing from the gut. Was it the case that Nowell thought very carefully about every modulation in the song from a theoretical perspective? Or was it the case that Nowell was just an individual who operated with such a highly developed level of musical instinct and talent that a more sophisticated level of analysis just becomes mandatory for a proper understanding of his work? In any case, if you like the content of this video, please give it a like and a share. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and to hit the notification bell. If you have any songs that you'd like to see future analyses of, mention them in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Although I should mention that I plan to focus on material that has the potential to benefit people who already have a relatively advanced understanding of music theory. This is the second video that I've completed and uploaded, and it took me a good amount of time to do so your moral support is especially crucial in the early days of this channel in deciding whether or not to continue producing content. Thanks again and look out for more analysis soon, including a potential follow-up of this particular video.